Okay, welcome everybody. This is the training for volunteers who will be helping us with mass as we return to mass beginning outdoors. We are required and asked to do training for all volunteers for all the new COVID guidelines and all this stuff. So there's a lot to take in and a lot to talk about. And if you have any questions, please email or send in your questions or ask the person who's in charge of your liturgical ministry. But hopefully I'll cover all the bases here. So these are the guidelines for returning to public worship during this time when we are being careful about COVID-19 and not infecting and passing it along to anyone. So you as volunteers are an extension of the parish, right? So we're so excited to be able to worship together again. And we want to make sure everybody's on the same page before we get together. Our purpose in this training, we're going to talk about the guidelines. We're going to help everybody understand the changes, and so we're all on the same page. We can carry them out together as a team. We want to make sure that as we return to public worship, that this is as rich and joyful an experience as we can make it under the circumstances. We do have difficult circumstances to deal with. So this is an all hands on deck moment. We're going to pull together. We need everybody to pull together to pull this off. And thank you for being part of this team to help us do this. Where do the guidelines come from? So the bishops submitted a document to Governor Inslee requesting to open masses in Washington State. It was a big, long document about all the details and principles that we would follow if we were allowed to have public worship again. So we have that document and the guidelines from there, and then Governor Inslee came out with a document for all the specifics for outdoor religious services or gatherings, and he has a list of requirements for that we have to follow in order to hold a mass, to have an outside gathering. So we are required to follow all of his points in this plan. So here's some basic principles to start. The goal of the guidelines is, of course, the health and safety of our community. We're not coming back to normal all of a sudden just because one part was opened up. We won't be back to what we're used to, and this is going to have a big impact on the way we do celebrate the liturgy and the Mass. It might seem like, oh, we're coming to the end of this, but it is going to be a long-term undertaking. We might not get back to normal or what we did before for quite a long time. So we just need to go forward from where we're at, deal with what we have to deal with so that we can gather and celebrate and worship together. And then as we go forward from here, there's going to be more changes, more adaptations, different guidelines. We have to be flexible. We have to work with what we have and do what we have to do in order to be able to come together. So if these changes seem frustrating, if they seem like a lot or too much, if it makes you sad that we can't celebrate a certain part of Mass the way we used to, I totally understand that. It totally makes sense. Sometimes we need to take a step back and just acknowledge, this makes me sad. But our other option is to not be able to have Mass. So we want to move forward with this. We want everybody to be on board with the guidelines so that we can move forward. And for me personally, when I think, oh, this seems like a lot, I also question, how would I feel if somebody did get sick from coming to Mass or from exposure to me? Maybe I didn't know I was sick and I got somebody else sick. How badly would I feel if somebody was very sick or maybe even died from my passing it on? So I try to keep that in the back of my head and say, okay, we'll just be extra careful. So some more basics. The dispensation from Sunday Mass remains in place. So if participation is not mandatory, people are not required to attend Sunday Mass in person at this time. And for those in vulnerable categories, we encourage you to stay home. We are really encouraging people to assess their risk and to stay home if they need to. Keep in mind your own level of comfortability and other people's. Some people are more comfortable with these risks than others. Some people are less likely to have a negative reaction a very serious reaction, I should say, if they did catch the virus. So we need to emphasize that attending mass, attending this gathering is at your own risk. Only do so if you feel comfortable with that risk. And that's for everybody who comes. We will continue to live stream Mass. Mass will be on our Facebook page as it has been. That's why we're doing 10 o'clock, same time that we've been doing live stream, because not everybody can attend. First of all, because of the risk factors, but also because we are only allowed to have 100 people at the gathering. And so those who can't attend will still be able to pray with us from home and watch at home and do what they've been doing. So, self-assessment. First of all, the vulnerable categories. We need to go over that real quick. According to the CDC, anybody who is 65 or over is more vulnerable to catching and having serious outcome from the COVID virus. Those with a heart, liver, or lung disease, anybody with cancer, diabetes, asthma, high blood pressure, or basically any underlying health conditions. That makes you in a much higher risk category. And so we want to keep that in the back of our mind and encourage anyone in those risk categories to just go ahead and stay home and participate with us from there. And a large portion of our parishes and our liturgical ministers do fall into these categories, and we would not feel good as a community if anybody would suffer or even die due to an exposure at Mass. That would be terrible. So we encourage those in high risk categories to stay home, but obviously people are going to want to come, and even people who are over 65 or have asthma or one of these high risk categories. We need to do everything we can to keep them safe anyways, and to let them know that it is at their own risk. So also we want to encourage you as ministers, if you do not feel well in any way at all, please don't serve. We're not just suggesting that. That's like hard and firm. Please don't come. We will make it work. Don't feel bad if you need to call in and say, I'm not feeling well. That's good. We want you to do that. We're going to make it easy for you to do that. Even if it's at the last minute, we don't want you to feel bad. We're going to set it up. We might even have alternates set up in case that happens. We're going to make it work so that it's not a problem. So please let us know if there's any issues. The other part of the self-assessment is that every single person, not only liturgical ministers, congregation, every single person is going to be asked to make this self-assessment before they come to Mass. So they should be able to answer no to all of the following questions. In the last 14 days, have you, or whoever is doing the self-assessment, have they traveled internationally, been exposed to someone with a suspected or confirmed case of COVID-19 without the correct PPE? So if you're a nurse and you are correctly covered with your personal protective equipment, that's okay. It doesn't mean you can't come to Mass. But if you've been exposed without that for some reason, then don't come. If you've had a temperature of at least 100 degrees in the last 2 weeks, if you've had new or increased shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, if you've had a new cough or had the following symptoms, it says more than 2 together: chills, muscle pain, headache, sore throat, loss of taste or smell. Any of these could be symptoms of the COVID virus, so we want to make sure that every person goes through that list and says, no, I don't have any of these things. In the last 2 weeks, I'm safe, I can come. So every person attending will be asked to look at these. It's on the Mass sign up. It'll be on the handouts that we give out. So look at those. All right, so that's the self-assessment. Here's some specifics for attending. So we do have registration set up. We will be, there we go. People will sign up to attend Mass. We are limited to 100 people. That does exclude those who are helping. So EMs, ushers, anyone who is helping with setup, doesn't have to register on our sign up because you are not included in the 100 people. Families or individuals who do sign up, as well as those who are ministering, will be checked in when they arrive. We are asking right now that people don't sign up for multiple masses in a row, multiple weeks in a row. We want to make sure, because it's limited, that everyone who wishes to attend has a chance to do so. And we're doing all 3 parishes here. So we want to make sure that everyone who wants to come and is able and healthy to come is able to come before we have people. We don't want 10 families of 5 to take up 50 spaces for all 3 masses, and then some people don't get a chance to come. So we're probably going to have to rotate through, not every week yet. Hopefully we'll get there, but as of now, we're limited. So we will keep the record of who's attended for a month, so that if there's an outbreak, we can call and say, hey, there was an exposure, there was an outbreak, and those records will be destroyed when they're not needed anymore. We're not going to keep them forever, and we're not going to be contact tracing anyone's phone or anything like that. We just need to be able to notify people. We will be asking to wear masks. That's part of the governor's order of what he required, even for the outdoor service. So we ask people to bring them and wear them. We also will have a large amount of masks to give out, so that if somebody comes without them, we can give them one. There will be strict physical distancing of 12 feet, not 6, 12 feet between families and between anyone else and you or father, especially father. We do not want to lose our priest, and we won't have mass at all. So we need to keep that in mind, and we need to be very mindful of that. At home, I walked out what 12 feet was, measured it out so I could see visually how far is 12 feet. So I'm not less of a guesswork, So we need to be very careful about that. Again, that is from the governor's orders. It's what he's requiring, and we need to follow it in order to be able to gather and have mass. Why is it not going? I am not clicking to the next one. There we go. So some more considerations. Mass is outdoors, so people will have to bring their own chair or umbrella. I heard it might rain this weekend, so any equipment you need. My family will be wearing our rainproof coats and waterproof pants and boots and whatever we need, so that we're not miserable sitting there in the wet and the rain. People will be checking in when they come. We'll try to have one access point where we make sure that people can check in, because we need to check off, yep, this family attended. There'll be an outdoor sound system so everybody can hear. The altar will be up front. Front, obviously front. The altar will be up by the offices, next to the front door of the office. And so Father will enter and exit through the office area, the front office door. Nobody else should be in that area of the front office area. I think the Eucharistic ministers might be gathering in the disciples' den, but that'll be closed off by the doors. So, and again, for the Eucharistic ministers and ushers, there will be more exact, specific details on what you do and your job is and where you'll be at each individual minute coming. We are working on those plans as well. They should be done very soon. Weather will affect the mass. As I said, it might rain. So just be flexible. Remember that there's a lot of variables that we're still figuring out how to do this. We're new to this. We're all new to this. We're all trying to do the best we can. So we're just going to have to all kind of work together and be flexible and be willing to jump in or help out or change things if we need to, if we see something going wrong, and evaluate. We'll be evaluating at the end. How did that go? What do we need to change? How can we do better? So there are liturgy changes. There will be no music and no singing. Studies have shown that singing can disperse the virus up to 30 feet, I think it was. Right now, we're not going to do it. We're going to be careful. If in the future we do it, it will not be congregational singing either. It will be a cantor only. For right now, we're just not going to do any. One of the guidelines as well is to keep the Mass shorter than usual because of the increased time together is an increased risk in infection. So it'll be a sort of a bare bones Mass. There will be no holy water or sprinkling rite. The faithful will not be bringing the gifts forward, and we won't be passing the collection basket. We will have a collection basket. People can drop their donation, their money, their collection in on the way out. So it'll be on the way out, and they'll probably, I assume, we'll announce that at the time, but it'll be short. Communion will be in the hand only, and people need to present a flat hand for communion, not a cupped hand for communion, because we want to make sure that we avoid any extra touching. And if there was any touching, then the minister is supposed to use the hand sanitizer in between, and it's difficult. So we want to just be extra careful. If somebody comes up in his cupped hand, we're going to ask them, to use a flat hand. So there will be no precious blood, no chalice for communion. It will be under the species of the host only. Remember that we do receive all of Jesus, his body and his blood, as when we receive even only under one species. So it is still full communion. All right, there will be handouts on the way into Mass. These are some examples that Assumption gave us, and we're working on getting ours put out. A guide to outdoor Mass, which just has some information on the safety of it, the changes, what to do if you feel sick, health department. The facts for outdoor Mass has that self-assessment on it, has signing up, what will Mass look like, or extra questions that people may have. We will have handouts like this as people will receive as they come in. So before and after Mass, there'll be handouts when they come in and announcements before Mass, because we want to make sure everybody's on the same page and knows what's going on. Check-in, I don't think I put that on here, but check-in is at 9:30 so that people can begin to arrive, and we can make sure that everybody is settled and ready when it's time at 10 to begin the live stream. So for EMs and ushers, you're going to check in with the person that is heading that ministry. There will be specific training, as I said before, for where you're going to stand, how you're going to go and, for instance, distribute communion, or as an usher, lead people to their place, or lead people out at the end. Those guidelines are being written, may have already been written, and being promulgated to those ministries. So ushers will show parishioners to their place when they arrive, as well as checking them in. They'll bring them and say, okay, here's your space where you stand, and it will be marked. Communion will be after Mass. So Father will, of course, consecrate the hosts and do all of Mass, but instead of coming up for communion, he will actually give the dismissal, and then we will distribute communion. And what this will allow us to do is to space it out so that families can receive communion and then leave immediately, and then receive communion and leave, so that we space out people, so everybody's not coming in all at once in a crush to leave, and then we all get too close together and we're not following the guidelines and all that. So ushers will facilitate this. EMs will obviously facilitate this as well. And again, that'll be in that specific training for where you go and where you stand and where each of your positions are. So that's the basics. In summary, we just want to say, like, it might seem sad or different. It might feel like we've kind of lost something because we don't, some of these things that we treasure, like communal singing and communion under both species and physical closeness and the fullness of the liturgy, have been kind of pared down. And it can feel sad, like we might be missing some of that. But we need to keep in mind that what we do get is Jesus Christ in the liturgy. We have the ability to celebrate together. We have Jesus in his word, in the liturgy of the word. We have him in his holy body and blood. He is there in the minister and ministry of the priest. And he is there in his body, in us, gathered together. We might be 12 feet apart, but we are together in spirit. And when we receive Jesus, we are together as one body spiritually. That distance is nothing. We're completely united with him. So despite the physical distance, we are gathered together spiritually as one. We can think of it as the field hospital church for now. We hope and pray to go back to the fullness of what we want, of the fullness of our liturgy soon, but we don't know when. So for now, let's be happy that we get together. I am excited that we get to have Mass. As liturgical ministers, as helpers, we need to make sure that everyone follows the guidelines. I started with that. You are an extension of the parish as one of the helpers. So in being all on the same page, we do need to enforce and make sure that people are following the guidelines. They're required. We want to be able to continue to have Mass and to celebrate Mass together. We don't want to be told that because we're not following the guidelines, we're not allowed. We can't. So we do need to do that, but we can keep it positive. We can monitor the spaces with gentleness, with humility, with love, with understanding. You know, we're all going to do the best we can. And so I'm just really happy that you guys, all of you who are helping, are coming on board and going to work with us and help make this a really positive experience and make everything run smoothly. We just could not do this without all of the volunteers and helpers that we have. It's a huge undertaking. We've been working like crazy in the office, all of us, on this all week, and we look forward to seeing you. And God bless.